So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Evelyn Ramos. I'm the Associate Director for the Career and Professional Development Center here at Stan State. We're happy to have you all here, and I definitely want to say thank you to all of our panelists for joining and taking the time to be with us today to share some really important information. Our panel today focuses on careers in law and how do you prepare for law school. So these are all Stan State alum, I believe. So you're definitely in the room with folks that have been where you are if you're curious about law school. So I encourage you to send questions you might have in the chat. I'll be looking at those to keep an eye on them. But I did want to introduce first Dr. Wilson, who is the director for the pre-law minor, and he's also the coordinator for the pre-law resource center. Thank you, Dr. Wilson, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Evelyn, and thanks for putting on a program that we've put on for the past couple of years, but it's great to work in collaboration with the folks who really specialize in career development here at Stan State. Real briefly, it's wonderful to see all the faces here with the panelists, primarily because I know all of them personally, and I hope I was helpful in getting you all to where you are now. We've got Emily Yonan, who's sitting for her second bar exam and has already been working in the Manhattan, as they say, Manhattan DA's office. And then Ethan is out in Indiana, and he's sitting for a bar this summer, so it's been 3 years. Anna is up at McGeorge and is graduating next month as well and sitting for the bar. Christian, also, thanks to Christian, was instrumental in putting together this panel. And Christian is heading down to his home county of the OC to begin at Chapman. And I know, Christian, you've heard this a million times, but my mother is a 1960 Chapman graduate. Back when it was a little, I think it was a Baptist Bible college of some kind, I'm not sure, but she's a speech and communications major, and I grew up with her correcting my speech and my communications all the time. And Lindy and Monique are 1Ls up at McGeorge, which of course is my alma mater, and I had the pleasure to see them popping into the department about a month ago. So I know I just took away everybody's ability to introduce themselves, but they ought to do it again once I'm done. But to everybody who's here, I'm looking at a lot of names. Most of these names are quite familiar to me as my students. If you are not familiar with me, folks that are viewing, get in touch. Email is mwilson15. And I am the campus pre-law advisor. And again, I've advised all the folks, all the panelists here. And I'm also the director of the pre-law minor. Those are two related yet not necessarily connected programs. You can come in and get advised all you want. And you can also sign up and become a pre-law minor. So two different things. You could be a pre-law minor and never meet me. And we have students who do that. I sign off on grad forms and think, I've never seen this person in the flesh, never seen their name before, but they take the pre-law classes and they move through it. And then there's students who get advising but aren't interested in the pre-law minor. So that's basically what I do in addition to my teaching duties in CJ. I also apparently am the advisor for the Pre-Law Society Student Club. I am on sabbatical. Woo, this fall. So pre-law advising is going to be done by somebody else. So for those of you that are going to need it, starting in the fall and technically the summer and all the way through winter break too, we're looking at about May 25th to January 25th. So excited. There'll be somebody else that'll be helping you out with that. But until then, shoot me an email, drop by the office, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I'd love to tell you what I know, but really, I'm kind of out of the loop as a teacher advisor, and it's the folks here up and down and to the sides of me that are really going to be the experts in giving you some good advice. I've got another meeting at 4, so I'll be dropping out in a bit, but I'll be here till a little bit before that, and I'll hand the mic over to whoever wants to take it next.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson, and thank you again for spreading the word about this, and definitely appreciate your mentorship. Has clearly worked. You have many success stories here on the screen, and obviously countless others, so we appreciate your time. So right now I'll hand it over to Christian. So Christian can tell you a little bit about himself, and he will be actually moderating the session today. Go ahead, Christian.
Hello, my name is Christian Lopez and I'm today's host. So as far as myself, I'm a student at CSU Stat. I'm a criminal justice major. This will be my last semester. And as Professor Wilson stated, I will be moving on to Chapman down to SoCal to continue my education and earn my law degree. So now we're going to move on to the panelists. So I would like each and one of you to introduce yourself and practically kind of tell us about yourself, your background, your current law school, and then your current year as well, and along with the year you graduated, if you're a graduate right now. So whoever would like to go ahead and start can do so. And then if not, I guess we'll start with Ethan.
Hey guys, so yeah, my name is Ethan Dawson. I am a 3L outgoing at Indiana University Maurer School of Law in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm going to be practicing in Ohio after graduation, should I pass the bar, which I hope to, at the law firm of Dinsmore and Scholl, doing litigation work. I really know what else you want me to say, but that's kind of what I'm doing.
Pretty good.
I graduated in 2018, if that helps, from Stan State.
And if you want, you could also share your major at Stan State.
I was a English major, but I bounced between 3 different majors in my time at Stan State. So creds to people that don't stick with just one.
All right, and then we'll go ahead and move on to Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm a 3L up at McGeorge in Sacramento. I'll be graduating this May. I'm sitting for the bar in July. I've accepted a position with a private firm in Modesto, so no more commuting for me. I'll be doing probate, estate planning work, and civil litigation work, which ties into my concentrations here, dual concentration with elder and health law, as well as trial advocacy. So I really enjoy that. So I'm excited to be working in the field I fell in love with. And I did so because I participated in the clinics, which if you guys come to McGeorge, I definitely recommend the clinic work to you. It's great on the resume and ups your offers because you get experience right away. So definitely look into that. And with that, I'll turn it over to the next student.
So the next one will be Lind and Monique.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Monique. I'm currently a 1L at McGeorge. I graduated from Stan State in 2020. I was a criminal justice major and I had a minor in philosophy. I was thinking about doing a double major, but I wanted to graduate. So basically, like a little bit about my background, I always knew that this was my end goal. I wanted to go to law school. I worked at a couple of law firms, and this summer I'm going to work at a criminal defense firm, a private criminal defense firm in Stockton.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindy. I am also at McGeorge Law School. We're both 1Ls together, which is really nice because we had a lot of classes together in undergrad. But I graduated from Stan State in 2022. And I also majored in criminal justice and I got a minor in pre-law. I got to do the court observer program the first time that it was offered. Shout out to Dr. Wilson, because that was an amazing experience. I still get told all the time in law school, wow, that's amazing. How did you do that? I'm like, I had an amazing undergrad advisor. But yeah, I always knew that I wanted to go to law school, did mock trials in high school. From that moment on, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a lawyer and nothing is going to stop me. And so here I am now. I was primarily interested in criminal law, but this summer I'm actually going to be working at an injury law firm. So I'm thinking of switching over to the civil side because I really like torts. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you. And then we're going to move on to our last panelist, which is Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I graduated from Stan State in 2019 and then attended Washington University in St. Louis. while there, I was a peer career advisor, and I'm a big proponent of like moot court clinics, journals. So if you ever want to talk about that, happy to talk about it. And I graduated in 2022, and I currently work at the Manhattan DA's office, hence the exposed brick in the apartment.
Okay. Thank you very much. I know some of you have already answered this question quite a bit, but the next question is, tell us about your goal. What do you hope to do with your JD or your law degree? And then what do you currently do with it? So we can just keep the order going. So if you'd like to go first, Ethan, go ahead.
Sure. So my focus throughout at least the last couple of years of law school has been in areas of constitutional law, civil rights statutes, 1983 work, especially focus on reproductive rights. So that's been an area that I've written on and been wanting to pursue after law school. I'm going to be doing litigation work at my law firm, and I'm hoping to build up some experience and then move to a nonprofit.
That's good. Thank you. And then if we could go ahead and move on to Anna, if you'd like to add on.
Sure. I actually was convinced I was going to be a prosecutor when I started law school, because my goal was to help people, and I was convinced that was the best way. And the more classes I took here, the more clinic participation I did. It was just like there's several other ways to help. And in the Elder and Health Law Clinic, which I'm in right now, we help with everything from estate planning to probate to abuse situations where, as a certified law student, you're appearing in court. And just to be able to see the look on someone's face when it's like, thank you so much for protecting me from this relative or from getting my house back. That was a great experience to realize there's different ways of helping. So I'm going to continue that by still continuing with estate planning and probate work. And hopefully some civil litigation experience. So we'll see.
Okay. Thank you. And then we'll go to move on to Lindy and Monique.
Yes, so I am still not sure what I'm going to end up doing at the end of law school, but I've always really been intrigued by criminal law, specifically criminal defense. So I don't know, I may, end up starting out as a public defender, or, maybe potentially at a firm that I worked at. In the past, I worked at a criminal defense firm in undergrad as well as a legal assistant, and that firm is really great. But I also worked at a civil firm that, helped women who were fired for going on maternity leave, and, didn't get their jobs back. And so that was really, really fulfilling, helping those clients who, are in a sensitive spot in their lives and need support. So that's also something that I'm thinking about looking into as well.
And for me, my biggest motivation has always been helping others learn about the law and advocating for people, because like I grew up, my parents were immigrants, and we didn't know that you can fight back like wrongful termination and just get compensation for people. Anything really, there's justice in so many things. And I always thought that the only way to get justice was through criminal law. And the more that I really think about it now, I'm like, I don't know if I can really, if I feel that I can do that by locking someone up, I feel like the harm is already done. So I'm trying to do that now through injury law, because I feel like at least there's someone still alive that's still fighting for something, that still needs some kind of support, but I still haven't had that real hands-on work yet. So I'm excited to do that this summer and hopefully see what that's all about. But yeah, that's what drives me.
Thank you. And then we'll go to move on to our last panelist, Emily.
Similar to a lot of what others have said, went to law school because of a desire to help people with the skills that you have, which for most people wanting to go to law school, it can be some form of advocacy, either oral advocacy or through writing. I spent a summer at the Department of Justice while at WashU, and I really enjoyed my time there in the criminal division, and that is what led me to my current job now. And so for me, I knew I really wanted to use oral advocacy skills to help other people. And so that's what drove me to do this. And I also knew that I wanted litigation experience and to be in a courtroom.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the law school application process. And the first question in regards to that is if you want to explain kind of what the LSAT is and how did you prepare for the exam? So then if you'd like to go first, Ethan, or if someone else likes to go first, they can do so.
Sure. So the LSAT is, I think, still at this point, the primary entrance exam that you take for entrance to law school. I know that it's changed a bit since I took it, and it's probably going to change more in the future. But with that said, it's basically just a standardized exam that you take, and they look at that score, they look at your GPA and other your soft factors, and then they make a admissions decision. How I studied for it, I came kind of late in the game to wanting to go to law school, and so I did kind of an expedited studying process that I don't really recommend, where I only took, I think it was like a summer to study for it. Other people, will take study for a longer period of time. I did like 2 months, but I just treated it like a 9 to 5 and weekends job, where I got a couple, I think I did the Kaplan books, I did all the Khan Academy stuff that was free, and then I took every practice exam that was publicly available. And it was a lot.
So, thank you. And then Anna, if you'd like to share how you prepared for the exam.
Yeah. This is a plug for Get to Know Professor Wilson if you have not yet done so. I actually prepared with Kaplan stuff, and I believe he got a certificate to be able to provide a student with the Kaplan program when he was at an event or something, or a conference. And I was that annoying student that was always in his office asking him questions. How can I do better with this? How can I do better with that? So he was just like, I know you want to prepare. Here you go. Here's a certificate course. Saved me a couple of thousand. And I did not have to repeat the LSAT. I was happy with my score. So definitely see Professor Wilson.
Yeah. All right. And then we'll move on to Lindy and Monique.
Yeah, so I had to take the LSAT twice because I was not happy with my first score. I started out with free materials, and then I moved on to stuff that you have to pay for. So I worked with 7 Sage, which was pretty good, but for me, I felt like I needed more attention and help. I do really well with lessons or somebody teaching me. So I actually ended up going with LSAT Demon, and it can be pretty expensive, but to have a one-on-one or a group setting with other students, going through logic games or going through the reading comprehension passages, it really helped me improve my score. So that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah, I also started off, sorry, I'm a little sick, self-studying. So I just purchased practice exams, and I just started taking them. I did that for about 4 months, and I realized I was totally lost. I was like, okay, I need something that's going to be more hands-on. I did try the free Khan Academy for a while. That just wasn't very helpful to me. So then I switched over to 7 Sage. At the time I took it, it was $69 a month, but it was well worth it. I also treated it like a 9 to 5. I remember one time I pulled a 14-hour study day. But that's just because that's all I was doing. I studied for it over the summer, and then my last 4 months of my junior year of undergrad. So definitely treat it like a job if you can, if you have the time for it. If not, that's okay. You can always study less hours a day, but longer period. For me, I just needed that extra time. And I also did take it twice because the first time around, I'm like, okay, this didn't work for me. Switched over to 7 Sage, and I saw huge improvement in my score, which was great. So I recommend 7 Sage.
Sounds great.
Yeah, Christian, let me
ahead.
address something there. I just put up a link to our website at school, the Pre-Law Resource Center. And there is a link there to get registered with the Law School Admissions Council, the LSAC. And they are the folks who administer the LSAT, and then they handle all of the application process as well. So whenever people come in and they say, oh, I want to be a lawyer, I say, stop, go read this website. So it's the Pre-Law Resource Center, and there's a link to the LSAC. So there's a question from Mindy Jazz, who asked about free materials. And then that dovetailed into what Lindy just said about whether or not the Khan Academy worked for Anna, worked for Ethan, doesn't work for everybody, but you get access to it by registering with LSAC, I believe, correct? Yeah. So for those of you looking to start putting your feelers out for what this test is like, follow the link, get registered, and you can start doing your LSAT prep. Now, let me say this though about the LSAT. There's kind of a revolution going on in law school admissions. I'm currently the secretary of the Pacific Coast Association of Pre-Law Advisors. And we have our big conference for the first time since COVID, starting up the second week of June over in Emeryville, which is just across the Bay Bridge from San Francisco, kind of next to Oakland. And what we are seeing, the trends in law school admissions, they're not prioritizing even GPAs and LSATs right now. And that is true of admissions to undergrad. You know, the UC doesn't require the SAT anymore. So what are they looking at? They're looking at narratives. And this is not the time and place to get into that too much. They still want you to have good scores, but some of them, again, are not even requiring the LSAT. Some are allowing you to take the GRE, the Graduate Record Exam, and that might be better for some people. But what I'm really encouraging students to do, obviously get the best grades you can, obviously take the LSAT if the school's requiring it, and things can change. But get ready to talk about yourself and get ready to talk about why you fit in diverse environments. And that's really what these schools want right now. Maybe the lower middle schools, not so much, but the top schools, oh man, that's the whole thrust right now of admission to Stanford or Berkeley, UCLA. They want diverse students. And the way they get that is by your personal statement. Back in the day, my day, nobody cared about your personal statement. All they cared about was your LSAT and your GPA. And clearly the folks that were coming from certain types of backgrounds and certain types of ethnic heritage, we're doing a lot better on those because of 400 years of, you know what, we can talk about all that. But nowadays, they want to hear a story. So that's something to think about. If you don't have it, you need to, everybody's unique. So start thinking about that and how you communicate that to a law school admissions director.
Great. Thank you, Professor Wilson. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question, which is, what did you wish you knew before applying to law school? So you can go ahead and start, Ethan, as well.
Sure. So I think when I was first starting out applying, what I learned by the end of it was that a lot of it is negotiable. Like you can negotiate your scholarships. You can leverage offers, and going into it with the mindset of, you know, maybe I'll apply to a couple schools that maybe I don't really want to go there, but I have a good shot at getting in, and then using those offers to leverage higher scholarships at some of these similarly ranked schools, or knowing what the peer schools are for your top choice school and applying to those peer schools as well. That I think was something that you learn throughout the process, or if you pick up on throughout the process, could be helpful. So that's my 2 cents at least.
Very much. And then Anna.
I wish I knew how to be more selfish. I let myself get dragged between everybody, like, okay, spend more time here because I know you're going to go into law school, or I know you're prepping for the LSAT, but can you do that? I wish I would have known better to just tell people I need to be left alone for this span of time so I can focus. And I didn't do that until like my first semester in law school, getting several emails of, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And I wasn't saying no to anybody. And by finals, I'm like, I didn't have any time for myself, and it wasn't fair to me. So learn to say no is a good thing.
Definitely. All right. And then we're going to move on to Lindy and Monique.
Yeah, I think building off of Anna, definitely setting your boundaries before you start law school is a really big deal. People don't understand what it's like to be in law school, how grueling the hours can be, how hard you have to work. You're going to have to say no to things that you wish you could take part in. at least in my experience, that's how it's been. And then also something else I wish I had known was how important it can be to, you know, connect with the admissions team when you're applying to law school. I'm just going to share that I got waitlisted, and truly believe, and they even told me that connecting with them and going to their events and building a relationship with them helped me get in. And they want people who are committed and who show, you know, enthusiasm and who are going to stick to it, because you could admit 100 people, but it doesn't matter if none of them show up and actually do the work. So, yeah.
One thing that I have to say is really research the school. When I was researching law schools, it's like there's so much that goes into rankings and wanting to go to the best ranked school, but you have to choose the school that's going to work for you. And there's so many factors that are going to play into that. So don't let this stigma of, oh, you have to go to a T14 or you have to go here. Don't let that drive you. Personally, I chose McGeorge because they make you do a clinic or 2 externships before you graduate. And so they really help you get jobs, which at the end of the day, passing the bar exam and being able to get a job, that's what's going to matter. So make sure you look at what's important for you instead of letting other people drive your decision, because that's really important. And also see what kind of support is out there when it comes to prepping for exams. Like I know we had a course our first semester where we had to go like 2 hours, 1 hour a week, and they taught us how to take law school exams. They taught us how to do IRAC, which we have no idea when you come in, like what on earth is IRAC? I mean, we learned a little bit in undergrad, but not really in the sense of taking a law school exam. And then we also had fellows who would kind of tutor us a little bit that first semester. So I really felt like we had so much support our first semester. Spring semester, this is a different story, but that first semester, we really needed that support. So just make sure you're looking beyond just getting accepted to a law school.
Can I jump in real quick? I got to go. So great best wishes on various bars to Ethan, Anna, and Emily's second bar, and best wishes coming up for success for Lindy, Monique, and Christian. And hi, Candace. Hi, good luck to Candace on LSAT coming up. So everybody, once again, get in touch with me. My email's over in the chat. And there's an old quote: more freedom for more people through law is a beautiful thing. Serve it well.
Okay, have a good one, Professor. All right, so then we're going to go and move on to Emily. I know you're short on time, but if you'd like to just go ahead and fit in this question, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sorry, the question was what I wish I had known before law
Yeah,
school.
like before law school, yeah.
Yeah, I think
But
it's
before applying.
Knowing how fast law school moves. It truly moves so quickly. And like for me, I don't have any lawyers in my family, and so you come in kind of not knowing what to expect. And so in terms of what I wish I knew before law school was, it's knowing it moves fast. So like try to do research before on stuff such as, what is journal? Do you want to do journal? What is a clerkship? Would you want to apply for a clerkship? Because that will help you a lot, because these decisions you have to make very quickly. And in terms of what I wish I knew before applying, I think it's something that someone else already said, which is make sure you go to the school that feels like the best fit for you, and make sure, like, do your research into what the community of the school is really like. So the school I went to, everyone was so great and so kind, and you had classmates and peers who wanted to help everybody out, and like everyone wanted to see everyone succeed, which isn't common because schools are graded in law school on a curve. And so that means if somebody gets an A, somebody else has to get a B. But and so some schools are really cutthroat amongst the students. I went to a school that was not that way, and I think that was really beneficial just to like my overall happiness in law school. Some people say they hated law school. I know I loved law school, and like and that made a big difference. But yes, I do have to log off, but if you have any questions, I'm going to drop my email in the chat just to reach out to talk. I speak with a lot of current admitted students, and so I know like the kind of people who are getting admitted. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Right, sounds great. And then once again, thank you for participating in the panel. We greatly appreciate it. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to our next question. So how did you pick the current law school you attend? So go ahead, Ethan, if you'd like, or anyone else.
Sure. So I had the lovely honor of applying in the middle of the pandemic. And so I didn't get to visit my actual law school. I got to visit like one law school before everything shut down. And so a lot of it was kind of just scouring the internet for anything I could find, finding any, testimonials from people who'd also gone here. But, I know there's another site called Law School Transparency where you can look at a lot of the exit data for schools. And when I was looking at Indiana, I liked the scholarship that they gave me, and I had bargained my scholarship up. I liked that they had a pretty high out of state placement because I knew I probably didn't want to stay in Indiana. And they had a lot of students that were getting jobs outside of Indiana. And they had pretty good big law placement, and they had pretty good clerkship placement. And so those were two things I was interested in. I initially, when I went to law school, I wanted to work at a U.S. Attorney's office. And so that was, part of my analysis at the time. And just my impression from, I went to an LSAC conference where you can meet a bunch of different admissions folks. And Indiana put a pretty strong foot forward. I went and, talked to all the schools that I'd applied to. And there was a couple schools there that after talking with them, I was like, oh no, I will not, I don't want to go to you. I think there was one guy from a school that rhymes with Schmemory, and he said like, well, you're going to be miserable wherever you go. I was like, I don't really want to go to somewhere that gives you that opinion. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, definitely. That's great to know. And then the next 3 are going to be interesting because I believe you all attend McGeorge. So I'd like to know how each of you came to choose McGeorge. So we can go ahead and start with Anna.
I chose it because they offered me a full scholarship. So I'm like, heck yeah. I mean, I had other offers from other schools and it was like almost 90% tuition, 85%. When I got 100% on this one, I'm like, sold. But in addition to that, touching off what Lindy said earlier, they really do want you to succeed. I messed up when it came to my personal statement. I read everything, answered it the way I was supposed to, and it was a 3-page limit. And I went over to a 4th page by like 2 lines. I feel like any other law school would have been like, you couldn't follow directions. Oh, well, move on. I actually got a message from somebody in the admissions office saying, can you fix this quickly? Get it to me before the end of the day. And if so, the scholarship is yours. Space here at law school is yours. So to me, that showed like, this is somebody who really wants to see me succeed. And that meant more than anything else. So that's, I was like, this is a fit for me. I do apologize because I have class that starts in 5 minutes. So with that, I want to say thank you to everybody who's here today. And I am dropping my email in the chat as well. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and good luck to everybody.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for participating. And then we will go ahead and move on to Lindy and Monique.
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to stay local. My family roots here are pretty deep, and especially in Northern California, there aren't too many options, especially in the Sacramento, Stockton area. So I applied to Davis and I applied to McGeorge, but I always knew I wanted to go to McGeorge. Like I always had that in the back of my mind. I grew up in Stockton with UOP, and it has a really big presence there. And in high school, I went to Pacific Law Academy. So it was kind of partnered with UOP and did mock trial and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the thing that made me love this school the most is just how much they care about you. Like what Anna said, it's really true. The admissions team, if you want this, they're gonna help you get it. And as long as you have the decent grades, decent LSAT, and you have a drive, they're gonna help you get here and do what you have to do. And when I found out that I got accepted, I actually had a Zoom appointment for a counseling appointment, and the whole entire admissions team and even the dean of admissions was on Zoom and to let me know that I got accepted, which is really sweet and not something that is very common when applying to law school. So
I have so many reasons why I chose McGeorge, partly being local. So I'm from the Turlock area. I love my family. I go home every weekend. I live up here during the week. But aside from that, I had attended a lot of events like this with alumni from McGeorge. And the thing that I heard over and over was, yeah, it's just like a family, like everybody cares about each other, everybody helps you, which is a rare thing because I feel like they drill it into you how competitive law school is. And don't get me wrong, like there's still some competition, of course, like healthy competition, but everyone here is really sweet. I lost my torts book last semester, right before the last class, and I had everybody messaging me like, oh, do you need notes? Do you need me to send you the readings? I ended up finding my torts book, but just anything like that. You're gonna go through so much in law school, also personal things that you won't expect. It just happens that way. I don't know why. And my classmates have been so loving. Anything that happens, I've been forthcoming with my professors, classmates, and I just wouldn't have expected people here to be so understanding, especially professors. So yeah, I think it's a great school.
Thank you. And I did see a question in the chat I'd like to bring its attention to. This person is asking if you attended law school right after graduating Stan State, or if you had, like a gap year or a couple of years in between, and then what are some positives and negatives to each choice? So I don't know, who would like to go ahead and answer that?
Sure. So although I graduated from Stan State in 2018, I took 2 years and I worked. I'd worked for Hayden Women's Center throughout my time in undergrad. And then when I graduated, they hired me to be a crisis line worker at their domestic violence shelter. And so I did stuff at the DV Center for about 2 years. And then I kind of over time gravitated towards the legal aspects of the intimate partner violence work, domestic violence restraining orders, court accompaniment, court preparation, that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of more where my interest in law grew. I didn't know I wanted to go to law school when I was still a student, Stan. So I didn't even meet Professor Wilson until I'd already graduated. I think it can be really helpful having already worked. I think it's a way to give yourself a story. It's a way to have some professionalism experience and have professional experience you can bring to the table to set yourself apart from other people. I have close friends here at the law school who, like one of my best friends, she did high school in 3 years, she did undergrad in 3 years, then she turned 21, her 1L year. And, I think it was difficult for her kind of running that marathon. And I think if you do some work, it can be helpful to provide you some scope of kind of school's not the only thing. There's other stuff out there. You've had experience maybe with the populations that you want to end up serving someday. So all those things can be really helpful. Negative is, well, you get older.
All right, thank you very much. And then Lindy and Monique, I believe Lindy went to law school right after graduating. Is that correct?
Yeah, so, well, I finished a semester early, so I technically graduated December 2021. So I had like a few months off, but I definitely think if you can take time off and study for the LSAT and work, I would recommend doing that just because I do feel like I burned myself out a little bit. I was still studying for undergrad midterms and finals while studying for my LSAT. And then it's like, okay, I just graduated. 2 months later, I'm moving to Sacramento to start law school. And like I was just telling her, it is exhausting. Like, they tell you like it's not a race. Law school is a marathon. It's like you constantly have one thing after the other. During midterms, I was sleeping like 4 hours a night. That's bad. Try not to do that. Try to sleep. But point of all this is I burned myself out because I have that type of personality where I feel like I constantly have to be working. And if I'm not working, I'm wasting time. So I'm working on that. But Monique took some time off. So she'll tell you about that.
Yeah, so knew that I wanted to go to law school, but I wasn't quite ready when I graduated from Stan. So I got a master's in legal studies, which is not necessary at all, but I just didn't want to like be stagnant. And I was also working at the same time, but like to build off what Ethan was saying, I think it is like honestly imperative to have some kind of background or, you know, working in some kind of legal aspects. Like I was a legal assistant and seeing what lawyers do, you know, day in and day out. They're in court all day long. It's exhausting. Having some idea of, you know, what am I getting myself into? What is this going to be like? I mean, it's 3 years, which isn't a lot of time for the rest of your life, but it's 3 years of hard work. And I think that it helped me a lot to understand, you know, just the basics of how things work in a law office. So I definitely recommend working if you can.
Especially if you're not sure. I kind of set it in my mind from a very young age. I'm going to be a lawyer and nothing else. There was no plan B. At one point, my brother told me, you know, you should really have some backup options just in case like the LSAT doesn't go how you think it's going to go. And I'm like, no, there's no plan B. If I don't do well, I'm going to take it again. I'll take a year off, but I'm going to go. There's no plan B. So I definitely also think you should know if this is what you want to do because it's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
It's so worth it though. Like, I don't want to scare anybody, but just be sure. So if you're not sure yet, go get that experience, go work in a firm, try to do everything to really know what it's like to be a lawyer before you take on this commitment because it's huge.
Thank you. All right, so next question is going to be, what did you wish you knew before your first semester? And then you could kind of add on to that and practically say, what's the best advice? What's one thing, like your best advice you could tell an incoming law student?
I think one of the things that I didn't know when I was starting, you know, I had a pretty good idea of like how I study personally, but I think just generally, if you're going to law school, know what you need to study in order to be successful in studying. I think something that I didn't understand that I wish I did when I started was how legal writing and writing for law school exams especially differentiates from like the writing that I did as an English major at Stan. It's a lot of kind of cutting the fluff out of your writing, knowing how to structure your answers in the ways that that professors want. If you can get mock answers or look at past exams as you're going into your 1L finals, I think that was would have been really helpful for me. You know, part of starting law school during the pandemic is that we started on this like expedited schedule my first semester where we were taking like torts for 4 weeks, and then we take a final, then we take contracts for 4 weeks and then a final. And so that we could go online at any point. But that meant that I didn't really get a whole lot of like legal research and writing training before my first exam. And so I wrote like a very nice persuasive essay for my first final of law school, and that didn't go over well. So I think know how to write for law. And if you can get some good examples of that before you get to finals, that'd be just some good basic preliminary work.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then we can move on to Lindy and Monique.
Yeah, I think one thing when you start law school, like every school is different, but you're going to have your first week of school where they tell you, this is how you need to study. This is what you need to do. You need to outline at the end of every week in order to be successful. You need to take 50 million practice tests. No, like again, what Ethan said, it's true. If you know how to study and it works for you, don't let people start telling you you need to do things a specific way, because at the end of the day, you know what works for you. You know, if flashcards work, that's great. People still use flashcards in law school. They're wonderful. You know, the outline can be very helpful to get all of your you know, everything organized and know exactly what you need to know for your exam. But at the end of the day, those can be like 60 pages or you know, it's a whole semester's worth of what you're learning that you need to be prepared for on an exam. And I think, yeah, so just knowing what works for you. And also, oh gosh, what else? There's so much. I don't know. Do you have anything to add? Well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you have to know yourself. I have to handwrite my outlines, which is a pain. I have a huge binder for each class, and I just have to handwrite them because that helps me with memory. But in regards to one thing that I wish I knew, I thought when people said law school is hard, I thought they meant it was hard in terms of all the law that you have to memorize. That's not hard. I went in and I memorized black letter law, right? Like my first semester, I could like recite everything. And then I realized what I really needed to be focusing on was analysis. So like applying the law to the facts. Nobody really told me that. I just kind of assumed, okay, I just have to write a really pretty rule statement and just pick one little factor, but you really have to learn how to play with the facts. But of course, don't be too persuasive, like Ethan was saying. But you still want to address like counter arguments and anything like that. But also just understand like law school exams are a whole different beast. Like our finals are 4 hours, and that is like a mental toll in itself. Like I have really bad anxiety. So the night before an exam, I'm like, phone is shut off, nobody talked to me. Like I'm already so scared out of my mind. But you'll live through it. At the end of the day, study in a way that works best for you and know what you need to know, and you'll be fine. You'll get through it.
I think something else, if I could just add really quick, don't be afraid to your professors. I think that there's like the stigma that law professors are evil, mean, horrible people, but at the end of the day, they're just people too. And some of them you'll even see like they kind of put on a persona when they're a professor, but in their office hours, they can be completely different. And going to them, sometimes they'll be super gracious and they'll look over a practice exam for you and let you know what you need to improve on, or you need to reassess what you're doing here. Like, have you been awake this semester or not? And just know that they're there to help you, not to hinder your experience, because at the end of the day, they want you to be successful and, end up being a great lawyer at the end of law school. So that's really important too.
All great advice. I'll definitely keep that in mind since I will be starting during the fall. So that'll help me. I'm pretty sure a lot of the attendees. And then since this is catered towards students at Stan State, they are most likely going to be future applicants. How can someone best prepare themselves for the law school application process?
I think this goes back to some of the things we said earlier. Do your homework. Going to one of the sites that I put in the chat there, lsd.law, which is like law school data. There's a lot of admission statistics going back, 10, 15 years that you can look at of, okay, this person, applied with this LSAT score and this GPA, and this is what they got in terms of scholarship from like these schools, and this is where they got waitlisted, and this is where they got rejected, and yada da da. And that helps you get a dial in on your application list. You get from that data, you can also be like, okay, I know that, for instance, the University of Washington historically really favors GPA over LSAT. Like that's something that they prefer. Or that Penn State, they have a tendency that if to give pretty good scholarships because they're tied to a larger university, but they have a smaller law program that's not as highly ranked. So getting a handle on that kind of information as you're going into the application process can be really useful. And also realizing that a lot of times these applications cost money. If you just call the admissions office, they've got a certain number of waivers that they can give out to you. Most law schools have not just admissions, departments with their own staff, but they've usually got students that they hire to be like an admissions fellow. My fiance is an admissions fellow for our law school, and they usually can connect you with one of those students to kind of get the student's perspective. And that can be really useful as well.
Thank you. And then Lindy and Monique.
Yeah, I think just one of the biggest things is to get organized. So know what schools you want to apply to, make a list, go on their website, find out what kind of essays you have to write for each of them. And, if honestly, I would write as many as you can, especially if it's a school that you really want to go to. You want to try to write every essay that they offer. You know, like they might have a diversity one, they might have something completely unique to whatever school you're applying to. So yeah, just get organized, make sure you have things right, because like Anna mentioned earlier, you know, some schools are lenient and forgiving with mistakes, but some are not, because they want to see if you can follow directions. So just make sure you know what everyone is requiring of you, and you should be good.
And also kind of like how Ethan was saying, if you have a dream school or you have a school you know you want to go to, make sure you see those numbers and try to line up with them. Of course, numbers aren't everything, but they are a huge factor in the admissions process. Aside from that, lost my train of thought. What were you saying about? Oh, the diversity statement and all that. Yeah. So when I applied to McGeorge, I had gone to so many of their events. And so they had sections like, how did you hear about the law school? I filled all of those boxes out. I was like, well, freshman year of undergrad, you guys came here and this is what I experienced. And I had a mock class with my criminal law professor. Now I had a mock class with him my freshman year of undergrad. So full circle. He's not the same in a mock class and in a real class. I'll say that. He was a little scary with the cold calling, but it's fine. You survive. Just make sure you fill out everything if you can. If you have a diversity statement, fill it out. You don't have to be a person of color. It could be anything that makes you different, anything that you believe that sets you apart. Fill that out. Make sure your resume is good. Try to keep it a page. In regards to the essays, follow directions. I really went with, there'll typically be a couple prompts, but I find that in so many schools, one of the central prompts is, why do you want to be a lawyer? For me, that's what I was able to write about. That's what came natural. So do what comes natural to you. Don't try to force yourself into a box if it doesn't fit, and it'll work out.
And just to add something on to what Lindy said, because I think it was really a good point. Yeah, being able to answer those, like, why do you want to be a lawyer questions, having like an elevator pitch for yourself, because you're going to have to tell your story just over and over again in like interviews for internships, during OCI, on campus interview process for your first like summer jobs. When you're doing the application process, like you're just going to be asked this kind of certain set of questions just over and over again. And having a compelling, quick answer, and like I'm sure career services can help you with this, that you're able to pitch yourself just over and over again, is really useful. And then second thing I just want to plug again is, if you develop that list of schools that you really think like these are the ones I want to go to, figure out what they are looking for specifically, what they need from an incoming class. I think this was a little bit easier when the rankings, the US World News rankings were, before those kind of got disrupted the last year or so. But if I knew that, okay, this school, they've been really focusing on LSAT. I was a splitter. My GPA was lower coming out of undergrad because I jumped between 3 majors and took organic chemistry 3 times. Don't be a pre-med, guys. It doesn't go well for you. But that was good for me to know, like, okay, if I get my LSAT score high enough, this is something that these schools will look past a lower GPA and they'll want me for the LSAT score.
That's good. And then I saw you wanted to answer the question regarding the cold calling.
Yeah, because in my head, I was just thinking, oh, it's not a big deal. They're just going to call on you for a question. Every professor has their own method. I got cold called during orientation week, the very first day where it's like, okay, participation counts. I still remember it was a torts case. Professor calls on me. He doesn't know names yet. You in the McGeorge shirt. And I'm like, I just like everything just drained. You get this ear burn. Honestly, it's surreal. It's typically like a few questions about a case. They'll ask you about like the procedural posture of a case, like the court's reasoning, the rule of law that came out. So you're going to have all your briefs ready to answer this stuff. But what I definitely recommend is book briefing, because sometimes they throw you off. They'll ask a question where it's like, if you're typing your briefs, you don't have that random note in there. It'll be like the smallest thing. So try to highlight in your books stuff. I have like a whole color code scheme, and that's helped me survive cold calls. But they're not that bad. They're actually kind of fun. They've grown on me. Our criminal law professor, though, before you get cold called, it's like this anxiety because you know it's going to come eventually. But then when it happens, it's like, okay, I'm fine, I survived. And it's almost becomes kind of exciting. But yeah, we have Vitello, that was Dr. Wilson's professor when he was at McGeorge. He like terrified me that first month or two. And then after he cold called me, I'm like, I'm not scared anymore. And it just kind of goes away. But it's definitely your first law school cold call will be scary, like, but you'll live through it. And even if you don't know what to say, just say something at the end of the day. Just don't say I'll pass or I don't know, I didn't read. Just try. And you know, they know you're not going to know everything, and that's fine, but it's going to help you in the long run. So
Yeah,
she has, yeah.
I'll share because I was terrified of cold calls, like terrified, and I'm still working through it, to be honest. I don't enjoy them, but I think the biggest thing is talk to your professors. Like the more you talk to your professors and get to know them, the less scary it is. And honestly, like especially for you guys who are just going to be coming into law school, nobody knows what they're doing. Okay. If they do know what they're doing, then they're special because it's okay to get a wrong answer. And the professors will tell you that, like, why would they have a job if we all knew the answers? It's their job to teach us and to help us get to the right answer and to help us think critically. And at the end of the day, you have to be able to do that in court. You have to be able to think critically and be fast on your feet and be able to recall information. And that's what they're trying to do to help you. And book briefing is the best way. And if you don't have time to finish your reading, because the reality is you have so much assigned reading that sometimes it's just not possible, because you might have a writing assignment due in your legal writing course that is part of your grade and your cold call isn't. Then Quimby. Quimby is very helpful. If you're not familiar with it, has like nice short video and a case summary. So.
And like Ethan was saying in the chat, you never forget your first cold call. And I never forget any of my cold calls. If you look at my books, every whenever I get a cold call, you'll see at the bottom of the page, it's like when you wet a page of a book and then it dries and it's wrinkly. It's like that because I'll hold the bottom of the page and it gets so sweaty. So I'm like, oh yes, that's the case I got cold called on. So, but you end up really remembering those cases and it helps. So.
And I'll toss in that when I started off 1L, I figured out with my first couple professors that, oh, if I just raise my hand and ask questions or respond to like open questions, then they won't cold call me. And I thought that was going to keep going. And then I got to like my first week of constitutional law and I raised my hand to ask a question and I thought that would get me out of the cold call. And the professor was like, oh, and Mr. Dawson, I owe you a cold call. And so he like doubled down on me. And that's just you got to know your audience. You got to know how the professors do different things. Some professors do like a panel where they're like, oh, these 5 students are going to be on this day, and then so on and so on. And that at least lets you know, like, okay, I really got to make sure I read for that day in particular. But everybody does it differently.
Thank you. And then we are kind of running short on time, so I do want to come down to the final question for today. And then what is the last thing you would like to share to the attendees?
So I think my advice is just, there's a lot of ways up the mountain. There are a lot of paths to law school. None of them look the same. I have a lot of my closest friends here who, they were in the military before law school, or they're in their 30s or 40s or 50s, or they're coming to this as a second career, or they're coming to this as, a third career, whatever. And the fact of the matter is there's no perfect law student. So don't try to fit your story to be some aspiration of what you think the perfect applicant is. It's okay to be unique because everybody here is different. There's one guy here who's coming in after beating 2 felony charges. So he came from the opposite side of, I don't know how his character and fitness stuff for the bar is going to go, but he came from the opposite side of criminal law. And, I think just enjoy the ride, realize that everybody's situation is different. I didn't know I was going to go to law school until after I was done at Stan. Like I said, I had like a three flat GPA, so my GPA was considered like low for law school. But if you put your mind to it, you can really figure out your path through. It'll be all right.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And then Lindy and Monique.
Yeah, I think just if this is what you want to do, don't give up. There's some things that they don't tell you is that a lot of your classmates are going to drop the first year, and it can be rough seeing people, quit. But if it wasn't for them, then that's great, and they need to go and move on to something else. But if it's truly what you want, don't let those things affect you and hinder your experience. Stay strong and push through, because we can do hard things, and it's going to be okay. Yeah, it'll be okay. And then you just have to tell yourself that and be positive. Like every time you have a negative thought, turn it around. Just stop yourself. Like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. This is too much. I can't do this. No, I can do this. I have the information in my brain. I've studied, I've worked hard, and just keep that positive vibe, because stuff can drag you down, and you just don't want to let that happen to you.
And just be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Why do you want to be a lawyer? Why do you want to go to law school? Because at the end of the day, your why is what's going to drive you when you're going insane and you are sleep deprived and you are stressed. You need to have that why, because if you don't have that passion that's driving you, it's so easy to just throw in the towel.
Yeah, and find a good group of friends. Find a nice group of friends that you can trust and that you can rely on, because these are lifelong. Like, this is lifelong. These are people you're gonna be in your weddings and just be best friends for life, and your colleagues. I mean, it can be hard, but it's really wonderful. So
All right, thank you. I appreciate everything you've all shared today. And then once again, I thank all of you for attending the panel. And then especially the panelists, Ethan, thank you. Lindy and Monique, thank you very much. We have run out of time, so that concludes the panel. And then I believe, Ethan, you placed your email in the chat. So if anyone wants to go and reach out to him, you can do so. But
yeah, feel free, guys, or I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is something you're gonna have to get used to if you're going to law.
Yeah. And then I just want to add something else. You just mentioned LinkedIn. For any Stan State students that don't know about LinkedIn or want to help set up their LinkedIn, they can feel free to come to the Career and Professional Development Center, which we can help them take a professional headshot along with helping them set up their account. And then I believe Lindy and Monique as well shared their email, so you can feel free to contact them as well. But that will go ahead and conclude our panel for today.
And if anybody has any questions, I know we're out of time.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
Free to stick around and answer any questions.
yeah, if you have questions, feel free to email me as well.
Or that, yeah.
Yeah.
Christian, good luck to you, man.